It's the Redbird Reboot podcast. Are you ready to get rebooted, Cardinals fans? He settles down, at least in the zone, and does not stop running.
Blake Murphy.
This is the identity for the Arizona Cardinals.
The run defense is just horrendous, and it's been horrendous for the Cardinals for a long time.
And Marcos Labrada.
He's going to bring over his philosophy. It should make it better.
Present the hottest NFL podcast from the country's hottest state.
He should be turning around the logo.
Actually, some breaking news we can cover here. This popped up just about, 6 minutes ago.
It's Redbird Reboot.
Welcome in, Arizona Cardinals fans. It's the Redbird Reboot podcast. You've got Blake and Marcos are here talking about your Arizona Cardinals, who had a game this last Saturday. They walk away with a win over the, if you want to call it a win, because it's preseason, 20-17 over the Super Bowl appearing Kansas City Chiefs. And there's plenty to talk about, Marcos. First of all, biggest thing, no injuries on Arizona's end. Jonathan Gannon confirmed this morning. There was a lot that popped up as far as there was good, there was bad, there was an interception, there were some fumbles. We got plenty to talk about, and we'll also take a look in this episode at a projection for the 53-man roster. Who's going to make the active roster out of camp? Who may be the surprising cuts? Even maybe a look at the practice squad. Lots to get into. Before we get started, I'm doing fine. How are you doing this evening?
Well, I'm doing great. It's been kind of like a hot day as usual. Of course, I'm always referring to the weather, but it's been a pretty good day, and I'm actually being joined by my little friend Gonzo. That's what I named him after Gonzalez. I keep forgetting what his name is. The baseball player, of course.
Mm-hmm. There you
Luis
go.
Gonzalez.
Absolutely. That's the one. Yes, no, definitely an Arizona legend there. Speaking of Arizona legends, one of them did not play in the preseason game. That would be Calais Campbell. He was held out, as well as Josh Sweat. I think going in, Marcos, we knew that there were going to be a lot of guys who didn't play. That's normally in preseason. The excitement came because we haven't seen Kyler play in a preseason game since 2021. We are a long way from the 2019 and that Clapgate, if you remember, with Cliff Kingsbury's offense and how that went. He played in the preseason through 2019, and I believe it was in one game in 2021, maybe a second one. There was no preseason in 2020 due to the worldwide pandemic. So you're talking about, this is really only the third time we've actually seen Kyler take snaps with the first team offense in the preseason. Something I know that we've talked about. I know Walter Mitchell even talked about it on our show previously, how a lot of teams start out quick when they do get guys going in the preseason, get some of those live game reps in, something that we saw from the Kansas City Chiefs. Unfortunately, we got to see the Chiefs offense a little too soon, Marcos, due to the Cardinals turning the ball over on the very first play of the game.
Yeah, what a way to start. And they only took him like 3 plays, and Patrick Mahomes was yanked right after that. It's kind of weird to even have him out there for like those 3 snaps if you're just going to say, all right, well, you got your touchdown. You threw your touchdown against Max Melton. Okay, you're good now. After that, it was just like, yeah, let's just go ahead and put Gardner Minshew out there. And so why even play him at that point if you're going to do that?
Yeah, that is something that is unfortunate, but it's one of the cases, at least, where we can take a look at the fumble and see how it all went down. The biggest thing that I think you take away is that fumbles are going to happen. The issue, I think, with Arizona is you don't want to have a fumbling problem become a fumbling habit, to become a fumbling identity. And that's something, at least with the Cardinals in this past game, we got to see that there were 3 fumbles overall in the game. So you talk about the new NFL kickoff rules. The goal, of course, is to kind of land it into that kicking zone. Beautiful punt right there. Greg Dortch goes back to return it, and he ends up kind of making a move, and the ball just kind of pops out at the very end. So when you have a clear pop out, clear recovery, that's something, at least, that you're not going to be able to really overturn that. Something that the Cardinals, unfortunately, had to give the ball to the Kansas City Chiefs, and we saw later in the game, at least, DJ Dallas had a fumble that he recovered. There also was another fumble, at least I believe, that was, put onto the ground, but was not actually turned over, which is at least good. So it was one of those spots, at least, where you kind of felt a little bit nervous for the special teams. It allowed the Chiefs to just kind of go up onto the field, had a nice fade route over from Patrick Mahomes over to, I believe it was Brownlee. I don't remember if he was a rookie or a second-year player, but it was very quick. The Cardinals' first-team offense then took over, and you had a second turnover at the end of what was a pretty promising drive. Kyler Murray actually completed 5 of 6. He had I believe it was yards per attempt that he had on that play overall, was higher than it's been in previous years. I believe that his yards per attempt, he had 7 completions overall on the night for 96 yards. The one incompletion, of course, was that interception. And that's really, Marcos, what people have been talking about. It's what they talked about then. It's what people have still been talking about on Monday. And it makes sense, honestly. No one's really going to care if you end up throwing for 12 yards per attempt, driving on the field, completing 7 of those for 96 yards. Normally, yards per attempt is going to be probably between 6 and 7. Cardinals offense looked effective. It looked like it was being able to be efficient. They picked up yards in multiple ways on the ground. They actually had, I believe there was a scramble that Kyler Murray did. He had a 12-yard pass that he completed to Michael Wilson on a bit of an off route. We can go over. You also had the pass for Marvin Harrison Jr., taking Marvin the slot, moving him over the middle of the field off of the play action. You had Kyler Murray be able to pick up at least a couple of yards on a scramble. James Conner ran the ball down. You get down to the red zone, and this is kind of where what everyone has talked about, at least, is the dumb turnover that we're able to see, and we'll pull this up on the screen for you guys here. This is a pretty decent concept. It's kind of you want to call it a reverse bootleg, but essentially you bootlegs to the left is what it'll be, with Trey Benson back over there. So this is the play that everyone sees. Kyler kind of takes a look back, throws the ball right to the defensive back, who actually, I believe, was Jaden Hicks, led the Chiefs in interceptions, or I think 11 total turnovers last year. Marcos, what do you see when we look at this film? Because I think a lot of Cardinals fans, some are making a lot out of it, some are kind of writing it off. What's your take, at least, on this situation and what Kyler either could do to improve? Was it a good play? What's the takeaway from this?
Well, it is definitely polarized. You have people on both sides of the aisle that are, a lot of them are saying that it was just like a no look pass attempt and whatnot. I think it's more of like just didn't see him. He didn't expect him to be there. So what I had said, and obviously we don't know what play call was made on the field because we're not there to hear it. We can question it. We can go ahead and say whatever it is. So you got this reverse rollout in the pistol, and he's rolling to his left, setting his feet, throwing. By the time he lets the ball go, the ball's already in the air. It's just too late to make any changes at that point. And he probably, from his view, what I'm trying to figure out from his view, because I saw Marv, running that like deep crosser, that kind of like that little crosser route, is that he had his defender trailing him in trail technique, trying to bump him on the line of scrimmage. I think he makes a miss. He just runs straight to do the crosser. When he's running across the field, if the guy's still watching, the defender, and you see everybody else, defender guys are not watching the quarterback, you could maybe think, okay, they both thought it was zone. They both thought it was man coverage. And then when he lets the ball go, he says, hey, there shouldn't be anybody there because Trey McBride is my guy in the flat. There should be somebody on him. This should be a wide open pass, and this should be a touchdown. If anything, a big completion. And it's like, oh, there's somebody there. And I wasn't expecting him to be there.
Exactly. I think, like you said, it seems like it's a misread as far as, like you said, it looks like they see man from the start of the coverage. And we can see when you look at him right here, you've got Zay Jones, I believe, 17. And this is kind of like the bump coverage. So as soon as he bumps him, we can tell he's not trailing him in man. This is definitely zone coverage. He pulls back, and you can see that you've got the defensive end, Trey McBride. And this kind of puts the defender into conflict because, he's trying to bump Trey McBride. McBride's able to get open on the reverse. Like you said, he's got to be able to make sure he covers McBride, but this is very clearly zone coverage is like how it goes for the most part. So Kyler looks back to the middle of the field. So you can tell you've got two guys here. You got kind of the two crossing routes, which means you got two different choices you can make. He's actually able to notice, at least from over here and staring. He stares right down the middle of the field over toward believe that is Wilson, unless I'm mistaken. At least it's down there. Oh no, that is actually Jones who ran back up and around. He sees that Marv's got a step on the one guy. You got a linebacker. Clearly, it's not going to be able to make it work for the most part. He's staring right down over here at the middle of the field, at least right at that linebacker. And like you said, he's not looking over at the other side of the field at all. Doesn't see the hook defender, so it's a hook zone. He kind of does do like a little bit of that no look pass because like he's not staring the target down. He throws it to where Marv is going to be. You can even said it on the broadcast. Throws it to where Marv is supposed to be. You'd think that Marv would be able to catch that and gets underthrown. The thing that I disagree with Murray and what Gannon said was, I just needed to put a little bit more on it. The answer is yes, but really, if you had seen that defender, I think we talked about this in reviewing the play. If he has seen that defender and he doesn't right yet, you would have lofted it. You would have then taken the ball, lofted it up into the corner, knowing that Marv could be able to adjust his route a little bit back, put a little bit more air under the ball, would have gone over the linebacker, or at least made it a really tough play. Like we said, one of the things I know, Marcos, we've talked about with Kyler in the past is that there's been a couple of times where there have been hook defenders where he kind of tries to throw the ball, and instead of giving it that loft, he kind of just sends it right to the receiver, and that we've seen it gets then picked off by the guy who's in hook zone. This is a Steve Spagnuolo defense where they either are keyed into that tendency of playing hook zone, or it's in a spot where, like you said, he just assumes, all right, Trey McBride's going to have the guy who commands the coverage. He's going to get that solely. I can throw it here to Marv. But the zone coverage is built for being able to get some of those interceptions. He does kind of throw it, at least in a way where there's not that much pressure here. Like maybe you would have seen a little different, but honestly, at the end of the day, what we can all say is he didn't see the guy who was there, threw it right to him. It's not a play that you want to have a seventh-year guy make. It is, however, like we said, one of those plays where you'd rather have Kyler get this lesson in the preseason with the opportunity to eliminate it in the regular season. The question is, Marcos, it's been entering year 7 of this. We've seen issues that Kyler's had with the hook zone. Is this something for fans to be concerned about heading into the year? Is it something you write off to preseason? What is the temperature gauge on this interception in the red zone from Kyler?
Well, that's something that he's obviously had during his entire career. I think Ernest Jones has intercepted him twice, playing that little underneath hook zone. Like he's a hook defender, and Kyler Murray would see a route develop going up the field, whether it's up to the seam or just a dig coming back or a crosser. He just doesn't see that guy underneath because he's dropping into whatever zone he came from. Maybe he was on the line of scrimmage and did a bump or like a little bit of a chip and then backed up, or he was maybe in the A gap or whatnot. That's usually what tends to happen with Kyler Murray. Somebody's lined up at the line of scrimmage and they drop into that zone and he just doesn't see him in time. Mm-hmm. That's just part of like what a film study would obviously show you, but he also has to pick up on other indicators as well. For instance, I think if he had this rollout, he set his feet. Let's say he looks over to the side where he's supposed to be throwing. Obviously, you would see him, but he didn't want to give off the play and didn't think to himself, hey, there's not going to be anybody there. My boy Trey McBride is pulling the coverage down from that area. There should be nobody there. Well, how do you know? Are you really sure? Because, there's certain indicators you can pick up on. For instance, like you mentioned, had he seen, and I'm not sure if he's able to see this because his back was turned, but you saw the bump on Zay Jones going up the seam. If he's bumping and he's just kind of like, dropping, getting that little depth and whatnot, at that point he thinks to himself, okay, there's might be somebody there because this guy's definitely not following Zay Jones. Zay Jones is going up and the safety has him. One thing that I do wish that he would do a little bit more often is know where like his receivers are when they're going upfield and moving off the progressions. Now he saw Marvin Harrison Jr. get like 2 yards ahead of his defender. He also didn't pay attention to the fact that Zay Jones had the safety. He saw the numbers, the numbers on his back. He knows that he could throw that ball over to the seam. He's done it before with Marvin Harrison Jr. The guy sees his numbers. He's like, okay, his numbers. He's not looking. Oh, this is wide open right here. It doesn't matter. He's not looking. He can't defend it. And he had a couple of yards off of that. But it's preseason, so the good thing is exactly what he said. I do agree. Good thing it did happen in the preseason and not in game 1 of the season.
Yeah, it is something at least where preseason, like we said, in training camp, people count interceptions, people count that. I am of the opinion that everything in preseason matters. What doesn't matter is the score. So it is something that matters because you don't want to see your quarterback making that play. But like we said, because the score doesn't matter, It's one of those places where you can make that sort of interception in the preseason. You don't want to see it be made in the regular season overall. Now, let's talk a little bit about some other fun plays that we got to see, at least overall, on that first drive from the first team offense before we shift over to talking about how the defense did. This is a relatively simple play overall, at least with Michael Wilson that picked up a first down. This kind of is the one that, like we talk about, at least when it comes to how Michael Wilson's impact can be felt. We'll pull up here the sideline view, at least, of this play. So we'll be able to get that set here. Actually, this is the first play here. Let me go and pull up the Michael Wilson one. So the Michael Wilson play that we have, at least as far as from the sideline, is going to be, there we are. So you see Michael Wilson moves over from one side of the field to the other, and you can kind of see like this man coverage across the board. Nobody goes along with Michael Wilson. The guy corner out here for the most part. I think this actually might be quarters versus the man coverage, as it looks like, since you got cover 2 being played.
It's quarters.
Yeah. He's got a lot of cushion underneath for the most part. Like, he just basically gives him the first down. Michael Wilson just turns it upfield. Is able to get past that first down marker. That's the sort of play, not even play action, but putting a man in motion that in the past we've been like, hey, this is the sort of stuff we'd see normally going to a Greg Dortch. Now, instead, it's going to a Michael Wilson with Marvin Harrison Jr. outside. You can even see as far as with how the coverage goes with the quarters across the board. Marvin ends up taking the cornerback with the safety in coverage. You see Zay Jones is the one over here. You got 2 guys there on Trey McBride, and Marvin Harrison Jr. is the guy who is drawing the attention. Trey McBride draws attention. Nobody goes with Michael Wilson. He just sits down in the soft spot of the zone, is able to make a play. This is the sort of season where if he's able to actually stay healthy and on the field, and that's something we hasn't done thus far, that's the sort of impact that not just we want to see, but the usage. Don't just get married to, you got Michael on this side, Marv on this side, you're moving Dortch or McBride around the backfield. Pull your guys around into different spots and different positions. And one of the best examples of that is going to be this Marvin Harrison Jr. pass. We got to see, at least from how they set this play up, you've got, it looks like you got man across the board, cover 1 for the most part. So it might be a kind of a cover 3 look, depending on how that guy is playing. A lot of teams, at least, are going to be in certain spots there. You got Marvin Harrison Jr. on second down. He releases at least a cross over the middle. And you can see with Kyler Murray standing tall in the pocket, kind of delivers a throw that's out in front where Marv is the one who's able to get it. Not an easy catch to be able to make, but these are the sort of areas of unlocking over the middle that we've talked about. And also, look where Marv is. He's not out there in the X position. They got him pulled into kind of the Y flanker role. You got the other slot receiver over here. You're able to just kind of read through it, the quarterback and receiver on the same page, saying, hey, guess what? You got the linebackers are here. Safety's playing way off deep. You can just kind of pull back across the middle into the zone and look at that protection that Kyler Murray has. We'll get a good look of it here in a second, at least from the other view. But Kyler, not under pressure, is able to make that play and get the completion for the first down.
Yeah, I love this route. This is the OTB route that I was mentioning. If you looked at the guy trying to jam him at the line of scrimmages, that release is awesome to see from like a guy who was going to be our X receiver, and quite possibly maybe he might even be a Hall of Famer. Who knows? I'm not going to go ahead and predict that right now.
It's early at least, but that's the pedigree. So
he released he basically sidestepped his defender at the release point. Being a 6'5", 6'4", 220-pound wide receiver, you don't see that from a wide receiver that's supposed to be that big. Usually, wide receivers that big take the contact, are able to either do something like what I was mentioning, like kind of like how defensive ends take on tackles, and they do a swim or like a little swim or club technique. Well, he doesn't even have to do that. He could just sidestep the guy because he's so athletic.
Yeah, It's very much also a throw that's an anticipation throw. So when you look at Kyler right here, he's getting ready to throw. Yes. Marv is right out of his break. Now, if you think about 2024, a lot of times this is one of those places where it's an option route. Kyler may throw out to the right and Marv would run to the left, and then you'd have a miscommunication, incompletion. They're on the same page, reading the same coverage here, and Marv is able to basically say, hey, look, I can just take a quick step here, get the linebacker to commit, because it's a linebacker in coverage. He's not going to be able to keep up, at least with the Marvin Harrison Jr. Kyler's able to at least read where he says, puts his foot in the ground. And then you look at how he's able to catch the ball as far as that extension. This is one of those like, hey, we've seen this before. He was wearing number 11 for the Arizona Cardinals. Being able to throw over the middle is one of those places of having to bring in some safeties down to be able to cover the run the Cardinals have, being able to cover some of these routes because you're not able to cover these guys with a linebacker. It's also going to open up some things on the side where you get some of those single coverage plays where we've been able to see, at least in the past, Kyler Murray's been able to at least take some of those different shots. I do think with this sort of route running from Marvin Harrison Jr., from what we've seen, these type of plays over the middle are going to be the bread and butter. He also is in a unique spot because if Kyler's looking at where these guys are as far as for where he placed it, he could also place the ball at least, a little bit more in terms of like he could, boom, throw it right here, throw it right into that spot. He notices there's no safety that's there. So this is kind of a spot from the Chiefs. There's also Marv's able to quickly get down, is able to throw it, places it in a spot where he's not going to get blown up. One of the things we saw with Trevor Lawrence over the weekend, threw a ball just like this to Brian Thomas Jr., threw it a bit high. Thomas had to go up and get the ball. And that's one of those areas of talking about accuracy where when Thomas went up to get the ball, took an extra time, he got blasted in the shoulder. You don't want to leave your receiver out to dry. We've called those hospital balls before. This is great placement from Kyler. You could say it's not perfect placement because Marv does have to stretch out to get it, but it is a great spot of recognizing, hey, either Marv is going to get this ball or no one's going to get it. He puts it far enough out that there is absolutely no way the linebacker can go in and pick that ball off. Just overall well-executed play. It's one of those areas of when we talk about seeing the Cardinals need to evolve their offense, this is a clear evolution. You're not having to just line up Marv at least into the slot, but technically here, he's on the inside route. You've got your X receivers on that side of the field. It's one of those places where we say, hey, like these are the sort of play calls we're able to get Marv open. You just want to talk about how you can get these kind of spamming the easy button sort of plays. Well, great way to do that is Marv's going to basically go up with the corner plays in zone. He draws a linebacker in coverage. Those are the sort of plays where you're like, this is the mismatches that last year we didn't really see from Marv until later in the year. We would see a lot of times he's out as the X, team's number one cornerback is on him. In press man coverage, he's got to go ahead and go out there and make a play. And instead, you get to kind of see him and Kyler be able to connect, move the chains forward. Great spot, at least for the offense to be in.
Yeah, that was a good anticipatory throw. Fitting it between the under, and this is a middle field close coverage too. So you have a safety that's ready to trigger down on anything coming over the middle. So getting it between those two linebackers, and the linebackers, all they're doing is walling off. So they just come out, try to reach out, maybe even touch the receiver as he's going, and then their job is to try to bump back and close that middle portion where the OTB route goes to, and he threw it in a way where the linebacker couldn't close on it like fast enough. So that was a great throw.
Yeah, we didn't see a whole lot from Will Johnson in this game, as far as we did see one penalty that he had for the most part earlier in this one, looking at the defensive side of the ball. What we did see, at least, though, for the most part, is we have been able to see a little bit of fun stuff from the Cardinals defense. So I'm going to pull up here one of the plays that we have. It's going to talk a little bit just about some of the good and the bad. We get to see here with Darius Robinson, with Creed Humphrey. They still have the first team offensive line. There's one of my draft favorites, Josh Simmons, is there at the left tackle spot. One thing we can point out is there is no Josh Sweat on the field here for Arizona. On the other side, you can look at the last play we saw with the protection was really good for Kyler to just drop back, take the ball, throw it over the middle to Marv. There's no Chris Jones for the Chiefs here. That's part of where when preseason happens, there's going to be a lot of times where the first team offense is going to end up getting a lot of times an advantage because not every single starting defender is going to play. Likewise, you're going to usually see at least the second team defense is usually going to overwhelm a second team offense because it's hard to find offensive line depth. Not the case on this play. So on this play, you basically have the Cardinals with Dante Stills is out there. Zaven Collins on the other side of Collins is going to be, I believe, the other edge rusher. This is the first team Cardinals defense. What I like about how this play went down is you look at the rush and what happened with Gardner Minshew. So here you take a look at least with what happened with Minshew. He takes off. They end up actually getting a holding call if you're Arizona. But you take a look and talk about, this isn't going to be a Patrick Mahomes, but take a look at how the Cardinals are able to get their pressure in this situation.
Yeah, just a classic collapse in the pocket.
Yeah.
You got the double team by Darius Robinson. You have Baron Browning also getting kind of like a chip help double team here going up against Josh Simmons. But they got your one-on-ones to the left side. These guys you're really gonna have to count on when you draw up what you draw up on the left side or the right side of the formation, may I say.
And you know what I like about this play from the horse? So here you can at least see as far as with how Dante, I think it's going to be Zaven Collins. He starts on the outside. It's kind of a little bit of a mini stunt for the most part. What I love about this, Marcos, is you count the number of guys who are actually rushing here in this pass rush sort of situation. That's only 4 guys.
4.
That's something that when we talk about getting pressure with just 4, that's the evolution that we needed to see for Arizona because they haven't had the bodies. It's not like it's we blitz at least because we just love blitzing. It's we don't have the pass rushers to be able to get pressure with just 4. Darius Robinson going up against the Chiefs left guard and Creed Humphrey. He takes on that double team. You can also see the biggest impact for the most part, though, is going to be on the outside. So here you got the Chiefs right tackle with Dante Stills lined up with Zaven Collins there on there. You can see what happens, at least overall, with the pocket is that he's got Collins here. Stills, for the most part, is able to ends up becoming the de facto edge rusher. So this is a good pass rush by Zaven Collins. He's taking the quickest route to get to the quarterback. He's kind of running into the other guard here. That's where he's trying to kind of push him in. But look, Stills at least recognizes, gets upfield for the most part, and then when he tries to run, he's got a guy right in his face. You take a look at the coverage. Everyone's covered. You got Gardner is basically looking at the quarterback. If he tries to take off or go forward, tries to run. Look how close the coverage is down over there, at least at the bottom of the screen. This is a good rep where you can actually say, yeah, this is what you want to see from the Arizona Cardinals. Rush 4, get pressure, have guys covered. You could at least how Buda Baker ends up getting right there in front of the guy who would normally be the kind of bailout man crossing in front of the field. Davis Gaithers, they're ready to go. And they get a holding call. Look at Dante Stills. He gets held. Otherwise, he would have gone forward, been able to probably get a sack on Gardner Minshew. So right here, he gets 3. He gets held right there. And they get the call. They nullify it because it's not even a first down, and they punt it back to Arizona. First team defense, great rep. It's kind of one of those spots where, Marcos, like we've talked a lot about the Kyler Murray interception. We didn't talk about how the Cardinals up against the first team Chiefs with let's be honest, second team quarterback here did well. And that's something that I think if you're looking at how to say what can this look like in the regular season, it does set your expectations for Arizona, I think, in a good way for what this defense can be. And also recognizing this defense doesn't have Josh Sweat on the field, doesn't have Calais Campbell, does not have their first round pick Walter Nolan on the field either.
Yeah, exactly. And this is beautiful because Jonathan Gannon predominantly isn't like a blitz heavy like defensive coordinator, or his defensive philosophy is not to make sure you send more than 4 people on consistent pressure and whatnot. They really didn't have a choice. So that's the reason why Nick Rawlis kept down the blitzes to the point that I believe they ended up I think they ended up like 3rd or 4th when it comes to blitz rate. But there's a difference between calling blitzes because you are good at it and that's what your philosophy is, or calling blitzes because you don't have the people and it's necessary to try to get that pressure. You leave your coverage like out there hanging because of the fact that you have less people in coverage on zones or on just defenders itself. You can't double team like a wide receiver, for instance, in cover 1, like double jersey number, because you have that body that's missing and he needs to go and he needs to blitz. And it'll just be beautiful to see what they do when it comes to like just having 4 fresh, like defensive tackles and whatnot and defensive ends who can consistently go after the quarterback because you got the bodies now at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's something that's really interesting to look at. Let's do a little bit more with looking at the defensive plays here. We've got another play. This will be kind of a sequence we'll take a look at with Bailey Zappi in there against the Cardinals having their second teamers. This is one of those plays where this actually was, I believe, the ineligible man downfield call on the center. So you take a look at least at how they're running. They kind of do a little pitch pass, have an option that's over here. The center gets a little bit too far out before he actually throws the ball. So they call a flag on it, maybe a little bit ticky-tacky. The thing that I think we can say about this play here is look at Akeem Davis-Gaither lined up here on the edge. When you look at with how it turns out, this is where he did not have as good of a game as I think we would have liked. It was him and Owen Papo kind of were guys that showed a little bit of stiffness. Here, he at least kind of was trying to keep his eyes on the quarterback upfield, ended up losing the guy. Fortunately, the play got called back. This is the next play in the sequence. And of course, if you guys haven't figured out where this is going yet, this is the sequence that did end in the Keaton Crawford interception. That's where this is going to end up going. So you end up seeing as far as where it comes with the rush, just kind of a dead play. LJ Collier gets a good push right up front. This is the next play, which I believe that this one is, this is the one where they had this is the one where Zappi at least was, and this is kind of where you can see in the pocket for the most part. Got sacked on this play by, let me remember the number here. Number 95 was the one I believe who was there in on the tackle. And that would be the... 91 was in on the tackle, and then 52 is the other one at least who was in there for the most part.
And Jordan Birch?
Yeah, that's Birch. That's what I was trying to remember, at least the last name of it. But yeah, third-round rookie Jordan Birch was the one who was there that stood up there on the side. And you can see that when he's lined up over on the side there, like, pretty big guy, like compared to Baron Browning. Xavier Thomas is on the other side. I believe that number 95, if I remember on the Cardinals for the roster, is Justin Jones is number 98 now. So I think that this would be, I don't think that's Simmons. I think it's the other rotational player for Arizona. Oh, Goodlow. That's who it was. Yeah. So Anthony Goodlow is the other defensive lineman with LJ Collier. You can see how they have lined up at least with 44. Owen Papo is taking over as the backup Mike on that side. And then you've got, of course, Akeem Davis-Gaither, 27, playing in the other Mike spot. This is one of those places where when you talk about quarterback play, ultimately, you got a pocket. It's coverage across the board. You're going to have to buy a little bit of time. Zappi steps up into the pocket as best as he can. But you see, he kind of gets a little bit of happy feet here. What you should do if you're Bailey Zappi in this spot, take off. You've got a linebacker who's looking with his back to you. You got 32s there. Just take off. He doesn't want to do that. He basically kind of is feeling the rush, feels some of the pressure. At least this is one of those areas, at least when we talk about the difference between guys who are smart backups, guys who are not going to be as smart of backups. Bailey Zappi is one of those places, at least, where he kind of turns his back, looks around, and he just ends up kind of trying to get out behind through feeling the rush. And great job of shedding his man by LJ Collier. You look at with Jordan Birch with how he starts off on this side. Watch Birch over here on the rush up against the backup right tackle. This is where we talk about backup linemen. We haven't talked a little bit about some of the other stuff, but he just is able to kind of bull rush, get around, make sure that he kind of is able to get there, uses that flexibility to bend almost. It's like he just kind of whips his way around that offensive lineman and is able to sack the quarterback down there. He had a great game. I believe it was, they said 2.5 sacks. 2 of them got called back because it was a penalty on the Chiefs.
Jesus, that must be sad, but at least you got it on film that you're able to, finish and whatnot. That guy, I've heard that Jordan Birch is more like a speed rusher at that big size. Sorry about that. At that big size that he has, and it really doesn't make sense because he should be more of a power guy. But
he's got power too. That's he was one of the Bruce Feldman freaks, at least for the most part, and he's found a great spot in this defense, I think, ultimately. Let's go ahead in here and get to the next play. This is, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, this one is the end zone view from the Kansas City 36. I believe there's one more play, at least, that we're going to get to here before we get to the good old heave that turned into the interception. Let's see what we had.
Unfortunately, we have to go with this with this setup because of the fact that it's not on pro.
Right. It is a little bit different for that one as far as where it is with film. So this is the play, at least, where we get to see the interception. Now, the Keaton Crawford interception, I was wrong. That's going to be a little bit later. This is the first interception that actually was done with Darren Hall. So you get to see here, it's 3rd and long. You get a expectation, at least for the most part, they're going to have to go for it. So they fake the handoff, at least in the speed rush. Look at how they're having to bring the running back in because of Xavier Thomas. This is what got a little bit of a, I will say, shout out on the Pat McAfee show. AQ Shipley was like, hey, look at Xavier Thomas over here, 5th round draft pick. He's lined up at least here against the Chiefs backup left tackle. You can see that they don't have a lot. He just immediately kind of makes a stutter step to the outside, crashes inside. Look at what he does with the running back, at least here, to get that pressure on Zappy. This is one of the things where you talk about the Cardinals having an improved edge rush from a year ago. Just being able to see him kind of develop, shoves the guy out of the way, forces Zappy to get out of the pocket. And this is just a spot where Zappy underthrows the ball. Darren Hall is just lying back there over. And this is what we'll talk about with getting interceptions. The Nick Rallis defense, a lot of times they will play zone coverage because their goal is to say, we want to have our guys to get a chance to get a turnover on the play. So here Zappy is there. He sees, hey, I got a guy running across the field. Hall is able to just to kind of be in the spot. He even looks back to see if he's got a shot, and the ball gets underthrown by Zappy. He goes up and makes the play. Ultimately, one of those spots where we can talk a little bit about this later, but it's helpful for his case to be able to make this roster because a lot of people have kind of written him off since he's an undrafted free agent. What we got to see in this game was he had 1 pick, probably should have had a second one. He may be outplaying Keitrell Clark for a roster spot here, Marcos.
Yeah, unfortunately, which I mean, I'm not very happy about, but I mentioned before the season starts that it looks like Keitrell Clark is going to be on his way out because I for whatever reason, he's just not in favor with this coaching staff.
Yeah, it's something at least that I think part of it too is with some of the play. What I expected, Marcos, was that we would see Keitrell Clark play a lot out of the slot and be the backup. What we saw in the game on Sunday was he was playing outside a lot. I don't think that's the best skill set for his skills, but if they've got Denzel Burke identified as that may be something here. Now, I do want to go over a negative and a positive since one of these did pop up earlier today, but we're going to go over this play that popped up here with Josh Norris looking at Trey Benson. This is one of the plays, at least, that we can talk about as far as with when we need to see development. This is one of the things that was similar with last year. So you look at Trey Benson here on, this is, I believe, on the first series. We're currently on the second series. Go back. You got a spot right up the middle to be able to run. He kind of gets up there in the middle, and then they close that gap really quickly. Now, part of it is you take a look, you see the linebacker. He tries to see if he can kind of split it outside. He kind of tries to run and then dances a little bit about, ends up kind of almost taking a loss on the play. So this is one of the cases where when you talk about how he's a speed guy, breaking tackles, you look at where things are set up. He just has to cut his leg, be able to run behind the lineman that's there. And he kind of instead says, hey, I can create a little bit. I've got some space. That hole closed pretty quickly here with number 34. He then kind of tries to hurdle and gets kind of pulled back. One of the places, at least, that we can see that he needs to be able to pick up his game a little bit. And this is one that you can see here of trying to run a little bit horizontal, not getting north and south. Those are some negatives that I think he'll need to improve in his game. We talked a little bit about that with Josh here. Let me pull back up the next play I wanted to show here. Which is going to be a good spot here of Trey Benson. Let's see. There we go. Sorry for those of you who are listening to us. I know it's kind of seeming like I'm rambling, but there's a point to it for sure. Similar play you're talking about, at least with the Cardinals. This is a pretty clear, just hand the ball off, follow your measure. Instead of bouncing it or running it to the outside or going horizontal, look what Benson does here. Just follows the blocker, cuts his foot up, and gets north and south. And the tackler makes a great approach on the play, but this is the sort of north and south running you want to see. Now, there's a little bit of hesitation that's still there. Like here, boom, just go up north and south. Tries to kind of lop it back inside, but that's still ultimately a good play because it shows this is where he's at right now. He's still having to be able to kind of develop a bit. The vision is still something that he's there, but when he's on these sort of plays that you're having, he's able to at least recognize, take a quick step in the ground, be able to accelerate. And he probably at this spot, at least honestly, could have taken on a little bit more contact if he wanted to. But I think ultimately it's like, hey, look, You got a gaping wide hole for the most part. If he gets one more step here, number 30, he's gone. Great play, at least by the guy there to be able to bring him down. It's part of the evolution of Trey Benson where we've seen him kind of take on a bit more snaps in the preseason, more snaps overall from last year. And I think we'll see more snaps from him this year overall. Now, that being said, that is not the highlight play that we're going to be talking about over here, at least with Trey McBride. I think we saw his 7-yard run. We saw his 2-yard run. We're going to take a look here at Trey McBride. Not Trey McBride, Trey Benson's play here. And then we'll talk about the other running back for the Arizona Cardinals because he's the one that we really get to talk about as stealing the show. So this is a second and after a 1st and 10. Trey McBride gets up the middle here, makes another tackle or two miss, picks it up. So now you're talking about 3rd and long. You bring in your 3rd down back into pass protection, which is Amari DiMercato. And if I say that name, fans know what to expect. This is a very, very quick screen pass. So you're talking just about, I think it's actually like a screen pass, and was it 2nd and long or 3rd and long? Either way, you got Amari DiMercato who's out there. Full screen all the way. 71's just going to let his man get by him. He's going to be out there in space to block. Perfect fake from the veteran quarterback in Jacoby Brissett. He's faking it like he's going to be going over here to the tight end, get the defense. They're sucked up field. And he just is able to pop it over to the running back. Gets a great block. And then watch DiMercato do the rest. He just gets around number 21, the safety. And this is where we talk about safety plays and angles, something with Adrian Taylor Demerson that we said that we like about him. You look at the safety here. You're the one guy who's in spot with Amari DiMercato. You know what you got to be doing? You got to be running to the running back there. The safety here, this is part of where some of those guys are like safety. His angle right now, he kind of tries to cut him off. Amari's coming back, at least for the most part. He's got guys behind him. Run to the guy and make a play. Instead, Amari's able just to kind of make his spot here and look at where he's at. You think that the angle is good. Amari erases the angle and just takes off to the rest of the end zone. Breaks another tackle, and he's gone. Highlight play for the Cardinals. And Marcos, I don't know if Amari's going to set a record for long touchdown runs at least, but after last year, after a couple of those, it feels like he's one of those secret weapons that you don't talk about in the Cardinals, but he really has been in the receiving game or in the, shall we say, delayed handoff game. Get him in space, let him do the rest.
Yeah, and here's the unfortunate part about like how we have our running backs in order and whatnot. Mercado is like their 3rd string running back, but this guy is like, he's special. I had no idea he ran 4.4 as a 40. I thought he was more like a 4.5 type of running back. Now it makes so much sense how he, explodes on those runs that he had, especially the one before the half against the Chicago Bears where he just took it to the house. Yep. He can pass protect. That's the most important thing. He can catch, he can pass protect, and he already has explosive plays. Why would you want to cut this guy? He's not going to make it to the practice squad if you do that. That's the reason why they mostly have gambled on Michael Carter getting cut and then picking him up at the practice squad, because if they believe that DiMercato gets cut, he's got really good vision and he has that explosiveness. He's not going to make it past past the waiver wire. So yep. That's unfortunate for the Cardinals that they have a good problem, but they also have to make Trey Benson start taking off when it comes to those explosive plays. Should belong to Trey Benson and not like, hey, we're still wondering about his vision.
Right. It's a place where I think what we've seen from DiMercato is that he deserves more touches than he's gotten for the most part. And it's something where when we're talking about Trey Benson, the idea is that Benson's going to be the heir apparent after James Conner. What we're seeing at least is that, hey, it's a good problem to have more running backs than less running backs. While at the same time, like you said, it does lead to where there's questions about running back 4 and running back 5, because we don't see Michael Carter in blitz pickup. We don't see him play special teams. And we see that for Amari DiMercato. That's one of those things that keeps you on the roster. We talk about the fight for 53. That's one of the things that really is clear when it comes to why some guys are able to make it in the NFL and why some guys are not. Let me go ahead here, and I'm going to do an interesting kind of shift overall here. Let me go ahead and share my screen again as we take a look at the Cardinals on the offensive side of the ball. We're going to look at a couple of plays leading up to another touchdown. So this is going to be with Jacoby Brissett. They hand the ball off at least to DeMercado. He's able to kind of make a quick move outside. Same sort of area where you could probably run it up the middle of the field, but what we're really looking for is this play. So this is heading toward a touchdown, but not quite there. This is the play that sets it up. We have a deep pass from Jacoby Brissett going to the outside to Xavier Weaver, draws the flag. The throw is a little bit out as far as for being able to be caught, but when we take a look here at the sideline angle, let's go ahead here, and we're going to see. So you got Xavier Weaver lined up over here in the flanker. I think this actually is the X spot for the most part on that side, since it looks like you got this guy is
it may be Palmer, I think.
Yeah, I think that's Tajon Palmer or TJ Palmer is lined up. So this is one of the shots where you take a look, you got two guys over the top, two guys here. So you're probably looking at something close to a quarters coverage or cover two. And the safety comes down into the field at least right away. So you're talking about Amari DeMercado, I believe, is the back that comes over. They bring down the safety. Amari did just, hit them for a touchdown. It's part of why having an effective run game works. So he's coming down to cover. He's got one-on-one coverage on the outside. Jacoby takes his shot. And you can see that the corner on the outside is beat. Xavier's got a step on him. If the ball is a little bit more lofted, you might be able to actually even have had a catch. But he goes through there. He knows that he's beaten on the outside, and he pulls him down, gets the flag. It's a spot foul. Pulls that pass interference penalty. That's the sort of deep passing play, Marcos, of being able to get those flags that we've talked about before. That's one of the things that's been missing from this Cardinals offense. The question is, could the Cardinals have gotten Xavier Weaver in some of that spot in a role where maybe they don't have to address the deep receiver as much? We get to see here on the next play, at least, to do a quick handoff at least to Amari. But all that is really precipitating is what ended with the touchdown play to Xavier Weaver. I don't remember if it's this one or not. I think this is yes. This is the one that's underneath DeMercado that got them inside, picked up another first down. Well, overall, just smart decision. Pocket's pretty good here. The Cardinals, I think we talked about in previous I think it was the lack of hesitation or guys getting closed up. They did a pretty good job here. I think there was one play that they had with Christian Jones. We'll have to see if he ends up how he plays as far as the preseason. He did all right, I felt like. It wasn't like it was the best as far as, like, you can even see on a play like this, like Jacoby's able to get out of the pocket, runs over to the sideline, is able to get that first down, showing that legs off. He at least did a good enough job of not getting beat where he was able to drive his man upfield, give Jacoby a window out the back door. I didn't see anything from Christian Jones that told me that he's the right tackle of the future. Didn't see anything that told me he's not going to be the swing tackle next year. I think we're going to want to see more progression from him if he's going to be potentially, a starting right tackle. But we get to then see everything pay off here with a little run up the middle to Amari DeMercado, gets it down close. And then it's the next play that we're going to talk about here. Got one-on-one coverage across. They're expecting to cover up for the middle. You know that there's no safety over the top. This is simply just beat your man. And you get to see at least running across the rest of the field. It's the touchdown over there to 84, which is actually, I believe, was called.
Out of bounds, I think.
Yeah, he was pushed out of bounds was what we saw in the call, because look, he came down without a step. This is the one that went to TJ Palmer on the fade route. Did not go through, at least for that one, as far as for the passing plays. So you're thinking, all right, Arizona, maybe you get to run it in, punch it in for the most part. This is where it finally ends up encapsulating here. Slant route over to Weaver. And you take a look at this. This is 6th round rookie Hayden Connor snapping the ball. John Gaines, injured thumb. He had a club on his hand previously. It was reduced to just the thumb, it seems like, and he was practicing before the game for the warm-ups. This is the route that it seemed like, and this is maybe what I noticed earlier, this seemed like they called the route going outside to the edge for Xavier Weaver. They threw the ball back across the middle on that play. Here they just say, hey, we can just go ahead and throw the quick slant route on the inside. He fakes to the outside. So remember, he's run to the outside route, run to the outside again. Here this time he fakes like he's, same route. I'm running to the outside. Instead he fakes it, runs back to the middle. And that's one of those areas when you talk about, hey, you've noticed tendencies. You notice some of these guys, like, they're going to be like ready to react for some of the plays. Veteran quarterback, or even we can even say veteran play call to say, hey, look, I noticed on the play that defensive back over here just 2 plays ago. You go back over here. He was watching over in the same exact spot and watch the route that Weaver runs. Runs up there, runs to the outside. 2 plays later, you take a look at this exact same sort of setup, and they get him. He's lined up in the same spot, fakes like he's going to run that exact same outside route, and comes back to the inside. This is where part of play calling as an art comes in. It's a well-placed ball. The best part about the entire play is the fact that the ball gets picked up off of the ground by Jacoby Brissett. No panic there, nothing like that. This is one of the spots where it's very well done as far as just very quick, picks it up, throws the touchdown.
Yeah, that's a good release off the line of scrimmage. And just like you mentioned, he ran that little corner route. And instead this time, hey, I'm going to attack him with the slant over the middle. And it was beautiful. I even caught it through contact. That's what's impressive because that corner was there.
Yep. It's a play that was really defining as far as I think when you take a look at Xavier Weaver, he can return punts, he can return kicks, he can draw a deep flag by getting separation over the top, he can get a close thing. This is a guy that's going to be on the 53, Marcos. I think that when we're talking about who's going to be wide receiver 5 on this team, the fight for that 5th receiver, I think it's over. I think we can say that we've got Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, Zay Jones, Greg Dortch, who had a nice end around to begin the game. It was a little bit surprising, actually. I think that they whipped it out during the preseason, honestly, because a lot of times you won't show those sort of little pass plays, at least, that are going to pick up that many yards. This was with I believe it was the field goal drive that they had, at least. I'm going to see if I can pull it up overall here. That's right. We didn't even talk about the Trey McBride play. We'll do a little bit more of film before we do our final 53 picks here, but I wanted to show off this play because it's just too good not to show off here with Trey McBride. You get the setup here where you've got, this is one of the things that I talked about, having 4 guys there. It's not 5 wide. This is 11 personnel right here. Now you've got your center, you got your right tackle, you got your left tackle. You've split out. I believe it's 14. You've got a guy in Dortch on the field, Harrison. We haven't seen a lot of 11 personnel for the Cardinals. Obvious pass play. They drop back. Protection holds fine with Kyler Murray. He just is able to take a quick spot, and you get a linebacker matched up on Trey McBride. You look at where the safety goes ahead of this play, too. So you've got, at least to my knowledge here, one of my favorite lineups also for this reason. Look where Marvin Harrison Jr. is lined up.
Inside slot.
Exactly. He's in the inside slot. You got the corners here. You got Zay Jones out wide. You got Michael Wilson out wide.
I'm trying to read to see if this is cover 3. It looks like cover 3 to me.
Yep. And so here you got, okay, this is what's fun. There's a bump and run sort of coverage. At least here 43 is running over. He sticks with McBride, at least for the most part. And then Trey just says, nope. Sheds it. Gets open there on the route. It's got a nice little spot here where if you take a look at when we talk about last year, the sacrificial X receiver that Marvin Harrison Jr. was, Zay Jones is existing here to get upfield. He's looking back to see if he can get the ball, but look what he's clearing out. Clearing out Marvin underneath is a choice route. If the linebacker follows underneath and gets Marvin, you leave Trey wide open. He follows Trey. Kyle looks at that and goes, yeah, I trust Trey McBride to be able to get that. Delivers a beautiful ball to him right up to get out of bounds. Pick up that down.
That deep out, that was a beautiful ball. He had to throw it to that corner as well. And I mean, it's a mismatch for Trey McBride to be able to beat a linebacker.
Yep. Another part of the play that we really like here, this now gets back to the 12 personnel. So you got Marvin up top, at least for the most part. Great route overall with Marvin. You could, if you wanted to, be able to drop this ball over the top for the most part. But Kyler's looking at this and goes, hey, look, I can go ahead and be able to take a difficult throw, or I can take the easy throw. They do a little, I think this is, it's not quite tight end leak. Let me double check. They just have very simple. Yeah, it's a little tight end leak. That's what it is. So Trey McBride goes in, blocks for a little bit, then gets open for the pass route. No one on the Chiefs picks it up. Yep. And Tip Ryman, he just gets it to him. And look at Ryman just go ahead and say, yep, I can just run forward, lowers the shoulder, falls forward. Great little play there. This next one is the one that I was a little bit surprised that they whipped it out in the preseason. Actually, I think it might be the next one here. This is just a handoff. The next one was the pop pass to Greg Dortch. This is the good one to Trey Benson, where you get to see Benson's skill set come in. A guy who has the speed to get around the corner, hands it off here. All you got to do for the most part is follow your lead blocker, follow Tip Ryman, and good things will happen. Picks up the first down. This is part of a great drive that did turn into a field goal. This is the one I wanted to talk about. I was a bit surprised here. We'll talk about opening up the offense, making things a little bit different. You got another receiver now on the field in Dortch. You're able to kind of go through, pop it. Chiefs did not see this coming. Dortch, of course, being the guy who can break tackles as he is, gets away from the first guy and picks up additional yards, getting those yards after the catch, or yards after contact, I should say. So yeah, right here, you're like, okay, he should be dead to rights. You got two guys there, plants his foot in the ground, just has that acceleration to get back, great contact balance. You're starting to kind of see, all right, the Cardinals do not have a number 2 receiver. They got a bunch of pretty good wide receiver 3s, though, and that's something that's really cool to be able to see. Let's talk about a little bit of the bad before we get into, I know we've only got a little bit left in our hour, but I did want to at least make sure that we highlighted 2 interceptions, one good and one bad. The bad, of course, being the Clayton Tune interception, and we can say about it with Tune and how he's looked, Marcos. We really have not seen a whole lot to, I think, at least say that he's going to be on the Cardinals this year outside of potential value in case something happens to Kyler Murray, or in case of value of doing just the tune time or the tush push, whatever you want to call it. He was able to operate the offense, but they kind of gave him some easy plays. This is just a quick catch to Travis Vokolek. Yeah. Pretty simple stuff, at least, of being able to get the ball out. Next play here, I believe, is the other DJ Dallas play that they had as far as the handoff. You can kind of see, at least here, with DJ Dallas, gets through another guy or two. He had to come back in later in the game, and I think he looked a little unprepared and slower. This is the one that we get to talk a little bit about, though, as far as with Clayton Tune, who drops back into coverage, throws the ball, and he air mails it. We'll take a look at least from the background view, but Marcos, this is just not a good throw. Because when you're talking about where you need to lead guys, the throw is being high. It's also a place where when you're talking about with reading the coverage, look at where the receiver's going. Tajon Palmer's in the middle of the field, got his hands up. Andre Bocelli's underneath. You want to try to be able to do that same sort of route to that Marvin Harrison Jr. got. And Tune is standing in the pocket. He just sails it. And you got a safety that's waiting over the top in cover 1, like when you talk about middle of the field closed. This is just one of those plays, at least when we've talked about Clayton Tune. One of the things that we've seen is that he will turn the ball over if he gets a chance. We've seen that in preseason. We saw that against the Browns. It's one of those places where I think the question is, do you keep the guy because he knows the offense? I could see the Cardinals going and saying, hey, he's our practice squad guy for this year. Could also see it being a case where they cut him, bring in another third quarterback to kind of bring in, develop with some upside. I don't think there's a wrong move either way when it comes to quarterback 3, and Jacoby Brissett is a big reason for that.
Yeah, he doesn't really get much time, much ability to be able to throw the ball, especially during preseason. So he has 2 more games to be able to prove himself when it comes to being able to complete like those type of throws. He did airmail that, and it was a route that was attacking that same exact area that Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. went ahead and attacked. You even see Tajon Palmer throw up the little like the hand up there to say, hey, just get, I got you right here. And it was just way too high. So I would say cut him and bring him back on the practice squad if you're not going to bring another person in. But it's just, that's not a very good look when you're in preseason, unfortunately. And I'm good with Tune.
Right. Yeah, we'll show this here from the end zone angle as well, just because it does show, at least when it comes to the accuracy, some of the anticipation here. This is where Tune gets it back. He's got enough room. You can at least see here, like you said, he's throwing the ball. Now, granted, the defender gets his hand a little bit in the way, but this is a ball that should not be thrown that high overall. You just throw it straight in between the guys that are there. Said the safety in the background just reads his eyes. This is that middle of the field closed look. So when you're talking about middle of the field closed, he has to adjust a little bit here. Part of this is like that's with third string offensive lines. You got to be able to, at least if you're adjusting your arm angle or knowing you can't throw this ball too high because you got a safety here. This is a very similar play to one I saw Trey Lance make and against the Cardinals. He was kind of in the same old spot. He threw the ball over the middle. Sailed the pass, went over. Budda Baker was waiting right. Either Budda Baker or Jalen Thompson. I think it was Budda. Was waiting right in with middle of the field closed. That's one of those plays you can't make. Now, let's talk about a good interception. This is, of course, is going to be from one of the guys that we've talked about in camp, one of the guys that has a little bit of hype despite being a 7th round pick. And that's going to be Keaton Crawford. So this is situationally 3rd and 16. You're just going to be kind of heaving it up, at least if you're Bailey Zappi, just to kind of set the tone for the interception. He's just going to go to the end zone, go all or nothing with the play. So you're talking about obvious pass rush situation at 3rd and 16. They're deciding they have to go for it. They're not just going to settle for field goal on 3rd down. Throws the deep ball. Keaton is over there and makes the play, having the speed to be able to catch up. Let's look at the sideline angle from this because it shows a little bit more of just some of the reading and closing speed. So here you got the quarters coverage for actually, I think it's not even quarters coverage. It looks like you got an extra guy over here for the most part. So I think you're going to be probably talking about probably a split field look potentially. Yeah, so you got the 3 guys that are over here covering for the most part. You got a zone that's set up. Keaton is back there as the deep safety. 84 just keeps running. Keaton just keeps reading it, runs in front, catches the underthrown ball. All the athleticism that you can say is going to be part of Keaton's game will show up as a gunner. This is still helpful to be able to see that, yeah, he can be able to make those free safety plays as well. I think the future looks pretty bright. It's the last year of Jalen Thompson's contract, Marcos, but you've got Dadrian Taylor-Demerson, who's going to get some playing time this year in 3 safety looks. Keaton Crawford behind him. I think the Cardinals with him and Budda Baker and Dadrian Taylor-Demerson are going to be in a good spot for the future.
Yeah, I was listening to the Bootleg football podcast, and they mentioned that he was a transfer from Texas because I think it was our friend EJ Schneider who said when he was watching film on Keaton Crawford, he was thinking to himself, this looks familiar. And then he followed where this guy transferred from, and he looked at like where his he was on the transfer portal the year before. Like, oh, he came from Texas. He looks like a Texas Longhorn type of player, and the way he plays, and the way he hits, and the way he reads and whatnot. Went to Utah to go, get some playing time because he couldn't, he couldn't submerge the other 2 safeties on the same team, and it ended up working out for him really well. But he does have that skill set, so he's somebody that possibly could have gone higher if he had just stayed with Texas and submerged won that starting position over those 2 players that they had in Texas. But hey, it worked out for him, and we got him.
It did. It's something I'm looking forward to as a Cardinals fan, of recognizing that the team has always had good starting safeties. They've never maybe had the best safety depth. Feels like they're in a great place with Dadrian and Keaton Crawford. All right, let's wrap up our show talking here about, and I'm going to go ahead here.
All right. So he had to obviously, come back in. There you go. He's back out again. He should be joining us soon. Or he's probably not going to join us, so we'll just go ahead and wait here patiently to see if by any chance he comes in. But hey, let me go ahead and read some comments. Hey, Dana, how's it going? Yeah, Xavier Weaver, I've noticed the way he kind of pass rushes is does a lot of high knees, does a lot of quick, right off the line of scrimmage. So it's kind of more showing off a speed rush. And let's see what the other comment is. Might be behind. I mean, if you're selling it that high, I would 100% agree. That's kind of lead the guy, especially if he's in that middle zone. I think you're talking about the interception that Clayton tuned through that was supposed to be thread the needle between the linebackers and, right in that zone between that and the safety that's going to come down and drive on that route. So, yeah, it's a hard, it's very, very hard to be able to thread the needle on that one. There you are. How's it going?
Bring guys a little bit of a camera issue there, at least I had. So we're here to finish up talking with our show on the final 53-man roster. I'm going to go ahead here and share my screen. So we have here now, if we look at the final 53, we have a good spot of being able to see at least what my projection is for right now. I think it's pretty straightforward, at least for the most part. You got 53 guys in green. The guys in yellow are the practice squad guys I think I could see. And then you got a couple of guys who are more surprise cuts that I have in red. So let's go over some of this. Marcos, do you have any agreements, disagreements with what we see here? Right now, I have Joey Blunt, Keaton Crawford, and Darren Hall on the team along with Denzel Burke. I think that BJ Ojolari will be healthy for the season. I have Keitrell off the roster for now. Elijah Jones I have as a cut. I don't think that he would last as a practice squad member because he was a higher draft pick. I have Royce Freeman and DJ Dallas. I think Dallas could make the roster potentially at the expense of a guy like Maybe if you're going to talk about like if a Hayden Connor potentially would be there, or like we talked about Royce Freeman, maybe they end up moving on from one of the guys that we don't expect, and Darren Hall doesn't make it because they're still going to keep Keetra on the roster and sign him to the practice squad. It's going to be very interesting to see. Let me go ahead, Marcos, and zoom in so we can focus on the offense and then see if there's any questions that you've got.
Well, unfortunately, I do agree with you with Keytrell. For whatever reason, he's not in good terms with this coaching staff. He's typecasted as a outside cornerback with this team when his skill set more suits the slot. But of course, Garrett Williams is in the slot, and they will not move him out of that position to the outside where Garrett Williams was an outside cornerback. So essentially, switch those two guys. And, Garrett Williams plays really good for a slot cornerback. But I do believe that if that's the case here, it's going to be a situation where they're just going to go ahead and cut Keetrell. Could he come back in the practice squad? I would hope so. Elijah Jones just hasn't shown anything. So that's the issue with him. So he's definitely out there as a cut. Denzel Burke, I'm not a really big fan of, but he just got drafted into this team. And so we don't know much about what is shown. And I believe he had like a above average game when it came to like his coverage and whatnot. DJ Dallas, I don't even want DJ Dallas on the roster because of the slew of running backs that we have. Of course, Michael Carter doesn't serve anything more than just being that running back that is very good at being able to run the ball outside and inside zone, but he doesn't do any special teams play.
Right.
And so I'm trying to read what the last guy, Royce Newman. I believe
Royce Newman is it's hard to read with the red. I know that was one of the things with the shade that I had there. With Royce Newman, it's one of those spots where he's got experience, but it does make me wonder if he's going to be left outside because Hayden Connor's been snapping at center. He got more playing time overall. I wonder if that flexibility of being able to play center ends up being different. The biggest thing, of course, is that if you take a look at the depth for the team, if Gaines is still hurting and he's kind of your starting backup guard, Hayden Connor may actually have to come in a little bit if you get 2 hits and 2 injuries. I had Royce Newman off for now because the alternative would be that Hayden Connor doesn't make the roster, gets signed to the practice squad. I have Josh Fryer on the practice squad right now as well, and I have Clayton Tune on the practice squad. I think that Clayton Tune's a guy that would get through waivers and you could re-sign to the practice squad. I also have TJ Palmer, the longtime practice guy, Andre Bocelli, and Simi Fehoko is someone who we talked about as when he was signed. Hey, he's a guy to compete with Xavier Weaver for that deep threat role. I think Xavier's put all of that to bed. The last 2 guys that I have here with Will Hernandez and Walter Nolan, I think they both start on IR. So I think they miss at least 6 games to start the season. I don't think that they'll be ready to go to start the season. Maybe Walter will get back in time for the season, but for now, I wonder if they're going to take a look at the depth that they have with Dante Stills, Justin Jones coming back, Elijah Simmons being a factor. I could see them just saying, we'll take our time with you getting healthy, Walter. Bilal Nichols, I also think will end up on IR for the year. He's still having his neck issue, hasn't been practicing at all. There's been nothing about him. I think it's a spot where he's been paid his money. He may not just be healthy to play this season. I don't know and he's not going to retire to just give up that money and walk away. He'll rehab, continue to do his best. But I think that he could be out for the season, if not for 6 weeks. That's what I have for the final 53. Is there any other surprises? I also have Travis Vokalek over Josiah DeGuara. I think that they'll like Vokalek and his blocking over DeGuara. We've seen some of the athleticism. He's made some great catches when he's gotten the opportunity in camp. DeGuara, I think, has been pushing him. That's what I have for the final 53. The other question, at least, that we can look at that would be interesting is Michael Walker versus Owen Papo is going to be interesting to look at. And Jalen Johnson. I think he's off of the roster in part because we've seen Darren Hall make some plays and because of Denzel Burke as a 5th-round pick getting some time. I think that we've kind of seen with what they like. He's going to start off on special teams, learn a bit, maybe take over as another cornerback next year as a backup to what we see is a really strong setup with the starting cornerback being Max Melton alongside Will Johnson and then Garrett Williams. It'd be Garrett, and for now, Max has been there. I could see Will Johnson being on the field a lot more when the season actually starts. But yeah, this is what we have. And of course, we don't have anything threatening Blake Gillikin, Chad Ryland, or Aaron Brewer. As far as for those who are wondering, of course, we do have guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, Paris Johnson. Your kind of typical starting lineup and first teamers are all going to be there on the final 53. There's always going to be a guy or two who goes off of the team. So you always say your goal is to get 51 of the 53 every year, because 2 of those guys are going to be cut or practice squad, or hey, this guy made the roster and then gets cut for someone else to come in the next day. But that's our quick look over out there. Anything else, Marcos, before we head out for tonight?
Well, I wish I could just I wish we could cut Nichols. I know that the investment's big, so there's a little bit of a hard situation when it comes to like trying to cut a guy that you signed to a contract and giving him the money that you did. But just being a fan here, I would cut him and just keep Keitrell. And I'm still gonna cross my fingers for like, hey, if Garrett Williams gets hurt, God forbid, then there you go. You got your slot cornerback.
Yeah, the one guy that I think I didn't put down here, I did put on the practice squad because I think there's just too many bodies with how Elijah Simmons has looked, as PJ Mustafer would be a long shot potentially to make the roster. Maybe if Walter Nolan is not going to be there and they decide to keep an extra defensive lineman. That's one that Dana's mentioned, at least with Dalvin Tomlinson at the 3 tech, Mustafer at nose tackle. That may change depending on how it goes with Calais Campbell being in there. And then with Darius Robinson, he so far has been at the defensive end spot. So it'll be interesting to see how they'll line up, because every NFL team now is hybrid. They're not going to be any 3-4 or 4-3. They're going to have multiple different fronts. We're just kind of seeing with how the depth chart is set up. The Cardinals usually list having 2 outside linebackers in base because they'll have Josh Sweat and Baron Browning there. Wouldn't shock me if they have a third safety at least pop up in some base defenses for the most part, but that's what we're seeing so far. The guys we've expected to step up and have made plays in camp have been making plays in this preseason game as well. Marcos, anything before we send out for our show, at least you want to say, or anything? I know we've got a game upcoming against the Broncos. We'll talk a little bit about that. There's then, of course, the third preseason game, which will kind of be our setup for the season. We'll see if we can have another Cardinals guest or two to preview the season before it starts outright as well, for those of you wondering what content we have coming up.
Yeah, I just let's go ahead and release like I said, Bilal Nichols, and let's get it. Or my boy Keecher. I'm just joking. I'm not gonna go with that again. Anyways, with what's going on, and of course this is a livelihood for all these players. I just hope these players do go into like the next game and the last game of this preseason. They work their tail off. They give everybody the best competition they can. And, I'm just hoping that everybody is able to, get the outcome that they deserve and whatnot. Because, there's going to be players that are going to get cut that just don't deserve it. But then there's those players that work their butts off. And so I'm just hoping that everybody gets, a good outcome. And if they get cut, they get claimed by another team, whether it's practice squad or they elevate themselves. But I'm here for great football and hopefully for no injuries.
Absolutely. Yeah, no injuries is what the hope is going to be for the Cardinals entering into preseason week 2. We've had plenty enough already with Walter Nolan missing some time. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you're following us at Blake Murphy 7 at Pancake Soul on X. We'll have more content coming through as the season gets closer. We'll also be uploading our podcast to Spotify, so make sure you're following us on Spotify for the audio version if you have not already. We'll also be available on any podcast platform. So you want to talk about your Apple Podcast, Spotify podcasts, our YouTube channel as well. We'll see you guys next time. This has been the Redbird Reboot podcast. You guys just got rebooted. It means it's time for us to log off. Have a good night, everybody.